Howdy, everyone. Coming to you from the frosty tops of the huge, expansive wilderness here in western Montana, atop the mountains and many ranges that comprise it. And from the other side over there, from the Stygian depths of the frozen swamps and endless woods of northern Minnesota, it's my buddy. And this is the first episode ever of World Bigfoot Radio. Thanks for tuning in, checking it out. If you have any questions for us, comments, or maybe you'd like to be a guest on the show or something, get a hold of us, World Bigfoot Radio at gmail.com. And we'd be more than happy to chat back to you on the email or answer any questions if we know the answer, or have you on as a guest if that's what you'd like to do. So just let us know. We're here to talk about mystery hominid sightings wherever they may occur. And for those of us who go out and research, it's lots of fun when you find out where they are and things start happening. And for people to see them randomly, sometimes it's a terrifying thing. And, sometimes they're at really close range, and it's a shock to last people for years before they can even talk. And other times it's a long time away, a long range away, and it's not quite so bad, but it still gets them very subject. Before we get on to all of this Bigfoot-related stuff, I'd like to talk to all of you a little bit about the awesome intro music that we're being allowed to use on this show, thanks to our pals in Swamp Ritual. And we just happen to have Sid, the drummer for Swamp Ritual, here with us right now.
Yeah, we're having.
Great to have you with us, Sid.
Yeah, and he wanted to use my music. Sure. And that's really awesome because then more people will be able to hear it.
Well, we like it.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Get some great. Hey, you just got done doing a little mini tour here up in the Northwest. You want to tell us a little bit about it and what different places you hit?
Oh yeah, we played with a bit of Mother Crones for a few parts of for like half the tour, and we just were on the West Coast in Washington and Oregon, Seattle and Portland, and a few little towns in between. And the other Missoula local band, Stone Elk, was with us. They make a song too, I'm sure, for this show. And we just kind of went there and did this little 10-day tour. It went really well, thankfully, because the gas was so cheap, so that really helped.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure. For all the folks that don't know what I'm chuckling about here, they've got a big old Econo van that they use to tour around in, and it's not modern, and it's great that it runs, and it does run, and it's really reliable, but it's not that great on gas, especially when you got a ton of equipment packed in it. And this whole side of the country is all mountains, so you can just imagine, they really want to gobble gas. So pretty much the low gas price enabled you guys to go out and go from point A to point B then. What was the high point of the little mini tour that you did? What part did you enjoy the most?
Well, there's this Mexican place in Portland, and they had a beer, burrito, and a shot for $10. That's pretty awesome.
So I imagine there'd be quite a few folks in that place then, huh?
Yep.
I could use a beer and burrito right now. And a shot.
I could use the burrito myself, too. I'll have to do that here after a while when we get done. But do you got any questions for Sid?
I don't. I just I like their music. It's good. So I think everyone should check it out.
Yeah, just for everybody who is maybe not paying that close attention to it, the intro from Swamp Ritual is their theme song, Swamp Ritual. And they've got an album out now. It's available. You can go buy it. I encourage you to do so. It's really great. There aren't any tracks on it. In fact, they have extra ones they didn't even use for it. And probably have enough material to do a set. That's a push. So if you guys go out and buy lots of copies, that'll encourage them to make a second one. But the thing I like about them the most is that they have catchy music, and they're a two-piece band, man, you know, and they're basically a doom metal, stoner metal type band, and they're doing it with only two people. They don't even have a guitar player. It's just a bass player and a drummer, and for the most part, you don't even really notice it. And you know, it's kind of really great bass player can do solos as good as most lead players. That helps a little bit. Sid has to be like two instruments at once, trying to do all the percussion and sort of cover parts on the bass line and whatnot. So it makes a real interesting blend. But both these guys have been playing together for years, and they're really experienced musicians. They're in other bands as well. And you know, I heartily encourage anybody out there that's listening, if you're near where Swamp Ritual is about to play, do yourself a favor and go check them out, because, man, they always put on a great show. They're a really great live band. I know sometimes you hear some bands recorded on the album and you go see them, and then live they're just, what is this? Is this the same band? But I heard that out. You know, any band can sound great in the studio, but only the really good bands sound live, and these guys are a really good band. I've seen a couple dozen of their shows at this point, and they're just excellent. So anyway, I'd like to thank Sid again for having been here with us. Is there anything else you'd like to say, Sid? Anything for the fans out there?
Well, I just, you know, I'd really want to thank you guys for having that on the beginning of this. And, yeah, just anytime you see us, just come see us. And maybe if you mention something about the Duke's radio show, I'll do a discount on a shirt or something.
Well, that's mighty nice of you said. Wow, I've already got a Swamp Ritual shirt right. Hit you up with that one already.
I'm gonna hit you up, Sid.
Thanks a lot, Sid. Thanks for being with us. It was great having you here.
Thank you.
Thanks, bud.
All right, folks. Well, let's get back to the squatchiness that's impending here. First thing, I think, first order of business is to let you guys know about who the guests and the host are on the show. I'm not even sure. Are you the host or the co-host, or are you the mad technical wizard? What's your title to be on this show, Grant?
You know what? I'm not sure. Co-host, and tech maybe. The problem is I don't know what I'm doing half the time, so we'll just go with co-host for now.
Okay, the co-host and mad scientist. How's that one sound?
There you go. Perfect.
Yes, Grant is our co-host and mad scientist, which apparently makes me the host because I'm not guessing on my own show. So for any of you that don't know who I am and want to hear about some of the encounters that I've had, go check out Sasquatch Chronicles with Wes Germer. You know, like one of the best Bigfoot shows out there. And I was his guest on number 185, 187, and 194. 187 covers the Class A sightings that I've seen. And then on episode 200, I came on and told about some of the other encounters that I had when I was down in Wyoming when I was much younger. And that'll get you guys all up to speed on all the stuff that's happened to me. Now, meanwhile, our co-host hasn't done all those shows yet. He's been busy being a mad scientist, setting up everything so that we could do the show for you guys. And but he has seen Bigfoot, and his wife has seen Bigfoot. So I'm going to interview Grant, and we'll just pretend that you guys didn't hear his voice already. And I'll give him the big intro and welcome for being on the first episode ever of World Bigfoot Radio, Grant. How are you doing?
Good. I'm excited.
Me too. Yeah, this is Grant Burnetta, folks. He lives up in northern Minnesota. I'm not going to tell you exactly where, but it's somewhere out in the endless expanse of 30,000 lakes and frozen swamps that comprises the northern part of that state, and makes it so damn difficult to do any squatching there because it's, you know, it's hard to even walk 10 feet without running into something that's in your way that you need a chainsaw to get through. So
that's the truth, too. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I know. I grew up there, man. It's unbelievable how thick and twisted some of that terrain is. And you know, I've been down in the swamps and the jungles down in the south too. You know, Central Florida and some of the deep south areas, and you know, you get some really thick stuff there too. And they just, for the most part, wouldn't realize that there are places like that. And northern Minnesota is more like a frozen Okefenokee swamp than it is like actual forests and lakes. If you want to look at it that way, Grant, maybe you could elaborate a little bit more on that one.
You nailed it. That's exactly it. Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, it's very squatchy. If you want a place where large animals have plenty of food and can move around and not be noticed by humans, unless you're really a bushwhacker and you want to get eaten alive by lots of mosquitoes in the summer.
Carried away, yeah.
Yeah, carried away, and again, I was down in some of the marshy areas down in Florida, and they got a lot of skeeters down there too, but those are, pardon me, Florida, but those are just hanky-danky little things. Those are teeny-tiny little things. Minnesota mosquitoes are like the size of a small plane, and you can hear them from 100 yards away going like a Japanese zero coming at you. And there's like 50 million of them, and you have to wear a scarf over your mouth so you don't breathe them in. And okay, that's a little over-exaggerated. They're not the size of a small plane. They're bug-sized. But they're big, and it's really, most people don't think about what a problem that is. Now, during the winter, you can get around up there, but then you've got a lot of snow, because you're either snowshoeing or going by snowmobile. And trying to bushwhack through a swamp during the winter when you're on snowshoes, believe me, is no fun. I've done a lot of it, and it is really difficult. And I'm not sure if Grant's done a lot of this or not, but usually most people, when they start doing it, realize it's foolhardy.
It is, yeah. I won't even, you're a braver man than I wouldn't even try it.
Part of the problem, folks, I don't know how many of you out there in the audience are people that use snowshoes, but the snowshoes get tangled up in all the brush when you're trying to walk across it. And your other option is to try and hack it off below snow level, which is so ridiculously tedious and time-consuming that there's no way. So it makes it really difficult to get around during the winter, too. But anyway, getting back to Grant here, sorry about that, folks. I didn't mean to ramble on forever and ever. Grant, was it you or your wife that had the first encounter? Which one you chronologically saw?
It was my wife had the first encounter.
Well, can you tell us about when, where, and a little bit about the encounter then?
Yeah. We have a cabin that's maybe a little bit west from where I'm at. And she was I was already at our cabin, and she was driving up there. And she basically
How long ago was it? How long ago did this happen, Grant?
And I would have to say about 3 years ago.
Okay, so fairly recent then.
Yeah. And she basically just saw it run across the road, the middle of the day, which was I thought kind of interesting. Middle of the day, big, tall, hair covered. She had kind of explained it as it looked like a basketball player, long arms, but it wasn't big and bulky. It was skinnier.
Did she have any kind of a guess about how tall it was?
No, just effing tall.
Yeah.
that was it.
How far away was it from her when she saw it run across the road?
Oh boy, I didn't really ask her distance wise as far as like how many feet or yards.
Well, I guess, the folks will just want to know, was it, like right in front of her, she almost hit it, or was it a ways off?
Yeah. No, it was right in front of her. It was, as she was driving, this thing, it ran right in front of her across the road.
Oh, my God.
And she said before it crossed, it looked both ways and then went, which was kind of interesting.
Okay. So it must have figured that it had enough time to make it across the road before she would get there then.
It must have, yeah.
Did she actually have to step on the brakes or...
No, it was far enough away where she could just kind of keep going, and like it didn't hold up traffic.
So really, it sounds like it knew she was coming. It watched to make sure that it had enough space to get across the road first, and it didn't really care if she saw it or not. It was just more concerned with whether she was going to hit it or not.
Yeah, pretty much. And I'm assuming that it was probably going for like a roadkill or something.
Yeah.
Or something that was hit by a car and maybe drug itself into the woods a little bit and then died, or something like it had to have been something like that for it to run across the road like that. But
well, it's hard to know without a kind of an idea on how tall it is, but my guess would be that it might have been juvenile. They have a longer, lankier build usually. They haven't gotten old enough to fill out and become huge and incredible Hulk looking, but they're already tall.
Yeah, and that was the thing that she really was specific about, was how gangly it was, how awkward it actually looked, because of the misproportion.
Did she say how long the hair was on it, what color the hair was again?
Yeah, so I asked her about the hair color and the face, and I was trying to get as much details as I could. And the hair was it was dark black, and it wasn't anything long, just kind of like a short hair, black, no long hair draping off it or anything. But black, dark black.
Did you see enough of the face to see what the skin color was?
No, she couldn't get a view of the face. She wasn't close enough to see the face.
Okay.
But
well, that's interesting then. So, again, right during the day, and it seems like we see a lot of that out here in Montana, where there's so much space and so few people. They're not as watchful about human beings noticing them, I guess. And I was really surprised when I crunched some numbers and looked at all the, at least all the ones that have been reported that are pretty much believable, that it seems like over 90% of them here in Montana happen actually during the day, which is like almost the reverse of the way it is in some of the states where it's more crowded and, there's more big cities, more people. It seems like they sort of stick to a completely nocturnal schedule there. And the further you get out in the middle of nowhere, the more you get sightings where people are seeing them moving around during the day all the time. So, it just makes me wonder if there's a correlation there where they are adaptive enough that if they're living in closer proximity to humans, they just go to a completely nocturnal schedule because of it.
Yeah.
Now,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say where she was driving, that's kind of the spot where she saw it. It's nothing but woods. I mean, we're talking like this is like reservation land with no housing, no stores for 15, 20 miles.
Yeah.
To kind of give you an idea of what.
Yeah. And that's typical of most of northern Minnesota, right? I mean, you can drive sometimes 30, 40 miles in between these little towns that have 200 or 300 people and see like virtually nothing in between except forest.
That's basically all of Minnesota, northern Minnesota.
Yep.
That's what it is, yep.
So plenty of space for them to roam around. It's almost, if you've been up there and looked at it and been around in it much, it doesn't really surprise you that there would be, mystery hominids, Bigfoot-type creatures living in that area because, my God, there's so much food and so much space for them available there where there just still aren't people. There's still areas in Minnesota where people never go or maybe have never gone, It's just too far out in some swamp in the middle of nowhere. We map it from the air, fine, whatever. There's a little lake down there, according to what the pictures, the aerial photographs and the satellite photographs shows that there's a little lake down there, so we named it. Doesn't necessarily mean that anybody's ever been there or that it's even possible to get there. Some of these little lakes are in the middle of a swamp that's, you're going to have to be on snowshoes during the summer so you don't go through the moss, do they have a specific name for that, Grant? It's kind of a muskeg, like really thick moss that'll grow out on top of these pools of water.
Yeah, like a bog is what we call them, bogs.
Yeah, essentially. You see a lot of these bogs in northern Minnesota, and what they were and still are are lakes that have been sitting in one place for a long, long time, and this vegetation layer built up over the surface of them, and it completely covered the surface, and then it got thicker, and eventually trees started growing in it. That doesn't mean there isn't a lake still underneath it. In a lot of cases, there is. And if you go through this, moss-like layer, upper layer, fall through it, you go right into this lake underneath it. And it's like going through the ice into a lake, except you can't see anything, there's no light. And, good luck trying to find that one little hole you just fell through and get back up again. I had that almost happen to me 2 or 3 times, where I was up, bushwhacking in swamps by myself where I shouldn't have been, and went through that surface layer, and, only fast reflexes saved my butt both times, where I had enough sense to just spread my arms out to my sides as fast as I could and stop myself from going through any further. But, went right up to my armpits both times.
Yeah, well, it's hard to get out of that, too. I mean, because it creates a suction when you go in.
Yeah, exactly.
You're pulling out of it.
You have to slowly swim your way out of it in order to get out of it. It's time consuming, it's cold, you're covered with black muck when you get out. You get to have that enjoyable stinky rotting smell on yourself all day long. Fun. So I do not recommend this occupation to anyone with common sense that doesn't need to do it. But again, this is one of the reasons why it's so difficult to do anything as far as tracking and locating these creatures in terrain like this, because believe you me, they know where all these little swamps are. And if they happen to know where there's a little area that's all surrounded by these things, well, they've got their own little castle with a moat around it right there. And they'll figure out how to get there. And they'll just use that spot, and they never have to worry about humans showing up, because we're not going to go there. There's no reason for us to go there. It's too much effort to go there. We're just not going to go there. And, so I think, again, that has an influence on their behavior, especially if they've got enough food supply around year-round. They may not have to move around very much, just stay in sort of a small area, go out to one side of it and gather food for a few weeks, go out to the other side, gather food for a few weeks. Just kind of work the whole area in cycles, let the local wildlife come back to this now vacant area for a few weeks before they go and hit it again. So, and then, well, how much longer after Jen saw the first one was it that you saw the one that you saw?
Oh, the one I saw was this summer. 2.5 years, roughly. I mean, I can't keep track of time, but it was this summer.
Okay, now, did you believe that there was such a thing before you saw it, or did you really know anything about it, or how did you come into it? What was your mindset when you saw it, basically?
I've always read about it or done research about it. My wife didn't. She was the complete opposite. She was a total skeptic. She'd pick on me when I would, look at the Bigfoot stuff. And that's kind of why, when she called and told me, oh my God, I saw a Bigfoot, I won that one. That was a victory for me.
So now she's not going to pick on me anymore. She's seen one. That one's all over with.
Yep. Yep. And then she started asking me questions, and I just but before my sighting, I've always been interested with it. I've always read about it or just kind of wondered. I was never sure, one way or another, if maybe, maybe not.
So you were basically informed skeptic at that point. You knew a little bit about the subject, but you weren't sure if it was for real, until you get that fateful phone call. And your wife, who originally came from where?
New York,
calls you on the phone and says, "I'm very sorry, honey. I was completely wrong, and I just saw Bigfoot. I apologize. You were right." And she didn't say anything exactly like that, but.
No, it wasn't anything, but still, I was right. How many husbands can say that?
Well, it must have. I'm sure not only.
And their wives admit it.
It must have sort of opened the floodgates there, though, because suddenly she was all interested in all the research you had been doing about the subject. And
Right.
you guys both had something to talk about at that point.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So now when you saw yours, it was during the summer?
Yeah, yep. I have a hunting shack. It's about 20 minutes from where I live, and the area is pretty interesting because where our deer shack is it's on its own little lake, and it's surrounded by a big bog.
Uh-huh.
So you can't walk through it. I mean, you can't get there.
So basically, this bog around this little lake that you got the deer shack on. So the deer shack is on the side of it that's above, that's on solid ground. It is not a bog.
No, it's on solid ground.
But this area around it, this bog, is pretty much like exactly what I was just describing. It's virtually impassable on foot.
You couldn't do it. No, you couldn't get through. And it's there's nobody else around. It's a pretty secluded area. So there's not very much foot traffic. Occasional trapper might pass through there every once in a while because there's tons of beaver on that smaller lake that we're on, and muskrat. So an occasional trapper might pass through, but other than that, no.
Before you go on, I'm kind of curious, do you have any sign of like fishers or wolverines or badgers or anything like that up there?
No fishers. No wolverines. They're up here, but they're hard to find. You really can't go out and find. Barely anyone sees the wolverine.
Yeah, they're incredibly elusive too, folks. If you want an occupation that's almost as difficult as getting a clear video or photo of Bigfoot, try going out and getting one of them wolverine. It's almost the same thing.
It just won't happen. They're hard. But there's like beaver. There's a ton of beaver. Tons and tons on that lake specifically too. They have their own runways, and I don't know if anyone knows what a beaver will make their own runway off of a lake, so they can drag their logs. You know, they make their houses out of logs.
Right.
They chip them up, and they make a runway so they can pull their wood through into the lake. So they have these massive runways going out of the lake into land and then coming back around. So there's a ton of beaver out there.
Nice. So have they managed to make themselves their own little lake then, or what did they do with their construction project?
The only thing they really make are the runways. Their house will be on the side of the lake, like bordering the bog, and these runways it's just like a small little river almost that will loop around and go back into the lake. And they make them with their tails.
So it's kind of fun having these giant self-propelled amphibious chainsaws wandering around there deciding what they want to do as far as changing the landscape. That's got to be trying.
Yeah. So there's a lot of wildlife around there, and not to mention deer. And do
you see any moose around there? Is there any sign of moose around there?
No moose. No. Maybe the occasional moose will pass through, but you have to go up north a little bit more to start seeing moose.
Oh, you're a little bit too much in the tropical part of the jungle in northern Minnesota. You got to go a little bit further north to get to the frozen part that they want to be. Well, from what I understand, moose don't really like temps more than about like 45. So they try and stay in areas that are cooler most of the time, so you don't see them in really hot areas. What kind of summer temps do you get there, where you live?
On a nice 80.
80? 90
on a super hot day, but for the most part, 75, 70.
So that's pretty temperate. I mean, compared to what people are seeing in, down in Mississippi or Florida or something like that, where you're just about 2 steps from being in hell. It's so hot, you're afraid you're going to burst into flame when you walk outside. That sort of thing. You don't really get temps like that up there.
No.
So And I'll tell you it's something else that I know from experience. There are some areas where that water gets down underneath a bog or something on the north side of a hill and freezes over the course of the winter. You get an exceptionally cold winter. And the sun never penetrates it enough during the summer to melt it completely. It can be a 90-degree day, and you walk down that hillside to the edge of that bog, and you feel air coming off that bog that's like 30 degrees. And it's awesome. So
yeah,
animals that like cold spots look for things like that. So anyway, you were up at your uncle's shack when the encounter happened then?
Yeah, yep. I was actually, I was checking on some deer stands just to make sure they were still up or still there. And when I got to my deer stand, I decided, you know what, I'm going to walk alongside the edge of the bog, and I'm going to follow this. There was a small game trail that I wanted to follow to see how much traffic has been going through there, if it's still being used.
Right, what kind of animals are using it, where they're going to.
Yep. And basically I was walking through there following that path, and basically I saw a Bigfoot or Sasquatch run. It was on the left-hand side of me. It ran right by me. I shouldn't say right by me, but it ran by me. And I just caught a quick glimpse of it out of the corner of my eye. I did a double take. By the time I did a double take, it was gone.
Mm-hmm. He was hoping to zip from one spot to another, and you wouldn't catch it out of the corner of your eye while he was doing it.
Yeah, yep. And another thing that was kind of weird when we were walking back there is we would find these big, I don't even know what you'd call them. They were a bunch of boughs, like, I don't want to say, like intertwined into each other.
Right. Boughs of what now? What kind of tree are we talking about here?
We're talking a pine tree.
Okay, so like a spruce or something like that.
Yeah, not so much a spruce. It would be a white pine.
Okay.
Like what people make wreaths out of. You've seen a Christmas wreath? Right. That's what we're talking about. And these boughs were all woven together, and the needles had fallen off, so it's been there. It was there a while, but it just looked like this big, almost blind that I could basically stand behind it, and you wouldn't be able to see me on the other side 3 feet away.
How close to the game trail was it?
It was right off the game trail, which I thought was kind of interesting.
10, 15, 25, give us a guesstimate.
Maybe 10 feet. It was right on. Yeah.
So if you're an 8-foot squatch with that nice arm-long reaches that they have with their arms, all you have to do basically is like take one step and you could grab something.
Yeah.
Yike. That's really creepy. Look out for these interwoven pine hides up there in the North Woods, guys, from now on. This may be where they like to hide. That's really creepy. Have you ever found anything else like that up there?
I have. More of like, I don't want to say tree breaks, because I don't. Weird placing of logs. Maybe like smaller popples that have been like broken and then stacked in between two trees, growing. There'll be like 3 logs stacked on top of each other. Just
how big around were the logs? How thick were they?
Maybe about 3 inches in diameter, 4 inches in diameter.
Okay, so not gigantic logs, but good size, saplings.
Yeah, nothing that you could break with your hands.
Did you look at the ends of them? Were they still green when they had been broken off? Did it look like they'd been sawed, or?
No saw. They were almost splintered, like if you were to twist it. I don't know if anyone's ever like grabbed a piece of, if they were trying to cut down a small sapling or something, it didn't go all the way, and you kind of got to twist it to break the rest of it off.
Right.
Like that.
So it was the wood still solid when you found it, or had it been snapped off a long time previous and was already rotting, or did you
it
check
wasn't
that?
rotting. The ends were they were gray. They weren't green anymore. So
Right.
the ends were like, obviously dead. So they were there for a while,
Did they have branches on them, or had the branches been ripped off too?
Branches were gone.
And how long were they about?
5 feet, 6 feet long.
So not
No
that
branches.
big, but good thickness. And both ends are snapped off, and they got no branches on them. And they're like piled on top of each other, laying in between where two trees grow up. Is what you're saying?
Yeah. Two popple trees will grow like right next to each other.
Right.
Maybe a 10-inch gap in between the two trees growing, and those 3 trees, the ends were placed in between the 2 trees growing.
Was there a longer part sticking out between the trees, or was it equal length sticking out on both sides?
One end, it wasn't equal. One end was really short, and it was kind of weird because, and maybe I'm thinking into this too much, I don't know, but the end that was pointing towards our cabin was the shorter end. The longer end...
Wait a minute, no, hold on now. You had these 3, what looked like somebody had torn these things off, snapped them off somehow. They hadn't fallen down there. There wasn't any evidence that they had somehow accidentally done this as a course of nature, breaking off sticks in a storm and throwing them there.
Right.
It looked like it had been placed on purpose. And the short end in between the 2 trees was pointing toward your uncle's cabin, and there was 3 of them.
Right. Stacked up right on top of each other.
See, I don't think you're reading too much into this. No, it was common for the natives in this country to use stacks of rocks or different little structures of sticks that they would make to mark trails and to mark where there were good things to go and where there were bad things. And when they used 3 rocks or 3 sticks pointing at something, that was a sign it was danger and you shouldn't go there. There was something dangerous about it. So why would someone leave a sign like, there's some native tribes still wandering around up there using this, let's imagine for a minute. And they're using these 3 sticks pointing at your uncle's cabin. Your uncle was just using this for like a hunting cabin, so he wasn't living there.
No. Right.
Why would it be dangerous?
Well, we target practice up there. So
okay. Was he up there pretty frequently?
No, we rarely go up there. Maybe once a year, or twice in the summer, maybe. And we'll go there, maybe just shoot, a little target practicing, and then leave. We're not there very often. Only during deer season,
right?
Which is in the fall. Right. Otherwise, it sits there.
I would bet during the summer that place is pretty mosquito infested. It would be tough to be out there at that point.
It is. Yeah, it is tough to be out there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, just when we're there, there's a gunfire,
Interesting. So now, have you found anything else out of the ordinary as far as like branches or unusual tree breaks or structures possibly made out of branches or trees or anything like that?
I've seen the now, when I walk through the woods, I'm pretty skeptical of as far as like tree breaks. I don't just because we get the snow and we get the heavy snow that will break branches and things like that. Right. So I think I know I've seen where you get like the half teepee, or like there'll be 3 popple trees, basically in a half teepee shape.
Right.
And then when I see that, I look at the ground and see, okay, well, was this blown over, or was it
snow load? Was it a windstorm? Was it we get tornadoes up in that part of the country, believe it or not, folks, and occasionally you get that swath of destruction going through there, and you have to be careful to look at that and go, well, this was, a microburst or something like that. And bears will also mess with trees and tear branches off and bend them over and stuff like that, so you have to be careful careful about that too, because they can do that sort of thing, but they don't pile things up and make structures out of them. They mess around with trees just to, you know, sharpen their claws, or because it's fun, or you know, sometimes the bigger trees will leave their claw marks on there to mark it as their territory, and let other bears know that, no, I live here, you guys shouldn't be around here, that sort of thing. But commonly, if you're really careful and look at it, and especially if it's been piled up in any kind of unusual way that you can't really account for from nature, and it doesn't show, you know, any signs that it's been chewed or clawed on or anything like that, it's got to be either humans or something unknown, because the rest of the animals in North America just don't have opposing digits to do something like that with. It's just outside of the realms of what they would be cognizant and mentally capable of doing, and what they would be physically capable of doing. So you have to really watch for stuff like that. So you found the blind there, and you found these 3 trees pointing toward your uncle's hunting shack. And have you found anything else weird and unusual up there?
That would really be about it, I guess. I haven't found any footprints, but you gotta imagine the floor, the forest floor is just leaves, and then underneath that are rotting leaves, and underneath that are rotting leaves. So we don't get the dirt or the mud.
Yeah, so really what you're saying is it's like they're walking on a giant sponge, and shortly after they or we or anything else steps in it, it just springs back into shape again. It doesn't leave an impression.
No. Yeah, you can't tell.
See, this is one of the reasons that you get so few people finding Bigfoot tracks and casting them in that part of the country, because it's not that they're not around. They're just not leaving tracks because it's so easy to avoid leaving them, and they practice not leaving their tracks anyway. That, you know, even if you've seen one and go across somewhere, go over there and try and find where it left a track. Good luck, man. Usually there's not going to be one there anyway.
Right, and that the only time we've all seen that the Trackway video.
Yeah, that's just wonderful. I was really glad when they documented that too.
Yeah.
And again, that was in the middle of nowhere, and there was no roads around there. There was no trails around there. The guys that found that were bushwhacking with their snowmobiles, and they said like they had to cut through like a dozen deadfalls or something with their chainsaws in order to get there. They were blazing a trail.
Oh yeah, yeah. And that's what Minnesota is for the most part. That type of woods. I mean, you're not covering in the day. You're not covering that much ground. You're going to be cutting and moving stuff to get anywhere, to be able to move, period. So it's really thick, but you know, the wintertime people will see them like that, but summertime I just don't see it unless they're like on a dirt road where the gravel is softer on the edge or something, but it's not we don't get very many footprints up here.
Yeah, we have sort of the same problem out here in Montana, where it's like I told Bear one time, I said, you know, they don't call it the Mushy Mountains or the Muddy Mountains, they call it the Rocky Mountains. They call it that for a reason, and it's pretty hard for anything to leave a track on rock, so you just don't find a lot of tracks. Yeah, there's rivers and stuff here, but most of them don't have sand along the side of them. It's all gravel or, you know, river rock. And I got those 2 tracks that I found in October down by the Blackfoot River. I was amazed that I found them. And that was exactly what it was on. It was on a river rock bar. It was next to a bend in the river. And there was a spot on there that had some dirt on it, maybe about a half inch to an inch of dirt, and some grass grown on it. And it was the only spot that really had anything that could have left an impression. And I was fortunate that he had walked across there. I found 2 heel impressions. One of them was 5 feet, and the other one was 5 foot 2 feet from the next impression of the foot. And the one good impression of his foot that he left, I got a picture of that up with a tape measure next to it, and that was 19 inches. And then 150, 200 feet away from there, I found another lone track where he had stepped in one of the few spots there actually was any dirt, as he was just about to apparently go up this steep embankment. And he left most of a track in there. I got a good picture of that one too. But yeah, you know, most of the time if you find anything out here, it's because they're on dirt where there's grass, and actually what you're seeing is a crushed down grass. They're not actually leaving anything that you could cast. You can just see this huge, vaguely human-shaped spot where something stepped there and mushed down all the grass there, and with enough pressure to keep it mushed down for a while. And that's what you're finding. So, and it's hard to even capture that on camera sometimes. You can see things that are like, it's obvious to your naked eye, but you try and get it on camera, and it's like, well, it doesn't look like you're seeing anything, you know?
Yeah, you're not going to pick it up on camera, yeah.
So we sort of have the same problem. Because there the ground is too spongy, and here it's too hard. But we do the best we can with what we got. So what color did you think the one that you saw out of the corner of your eye was? It was during the day, so you should have been able to see what color he was probably.
Yeah, it was brown, a light brown. It was kind of a couple different colors actually. It was dark brown. It was almost like a highlighted hair, dark brown, and then they were streaked with a little bit, lighter brown. But it was brown. Had long. The thing that got me, that really caught my eye, was the actual hair, because the upper half had longer hair. It was almost drooping off of the arms.
So, like, if you had gotten a clear look at it, you maybe wouldn't have been able to see the hands anyway. The hair was like that far down that it was going past the hands even. Yeah,
it was.
Wow.
It had hair coming off the top of it, top end,
right,
top half.
So it's pretty shaggy. But then, like, did it look like there was that much hair on the legs? Could you see the shins or anything from where you were at?
No, I could. So I could see the legs, but it was only a couple second glance, and the way it was moving was it looked a lot like the Minnesota, the St. Croix, the
Auburn, Sasquatch, and Stillwater. Yeah, that's one of my favorite videos. Came out of Minnesota, folks. Go check it out. That's a great video. Go ahead, Grant.
Yep. Well, and that video really sticks with me because that's how it was running through the woods. It was in that, like, sort of hunched over, like, I'm trying to go, clearing underbrush, that type of thing, just low, hunched over and moving. It was fast. It was quick, and it was really quiet.
For anybody that's never tried this, man, it's difficult to do that. Try and duck down like that and move for any distance in that crouch position and do it really silently and fast is really tough. That takes some practice.
Yeah, you can hear a person walking through the woods, no problem.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
you're going to sound like a tank.
Yeah, it's ridiculous how loud we are. Branches breaking, even, walking, you're walking on branches, things are snapping, cracking, and then, to get your upper half through a lot of places, you got to break a branch or whatever. So a person walking through the woods is extremely loud. Even when they're trying to sneak or be quiet, you're still going to be loud.
Right.
So this thing was it moved quick and it was quiet, which, I don't know, it was strange to see. I actually doubted myself for a couple days. In my head, I was thinking, God, did I really see that? And then I told my wife about it, but I waited a few days and kind of just went over it in my head. Like, geez, did that really happen? Did I just see that? That type of thing. So, I mean, it was surprising to see that. Totally caught me off guard.
How long do you think the hair on the upper part of the body was? Was it long coming off the shoulders too, or was it just a head? Or
no, it was long coming off the shoulders too, and the arms. I'd say it was like long hair, like some women would have long hair coming off the head, and like the shoulders.
Right.
The arms had that longer hair on it too.
Interesting. That's from the parts of it I could see anyway. That's what the first one that I saw looked like. That kind of threw me for a long time because first time I ever saw a picture of a repeated Bigfoot was the Patterson-Gimlin footage, and Patty's so neat and with the short little hair and pretty, and the thing I saw was just had this shaggy long monster hair on it. It didn't look anything like that. It was gray and white.
Mm-hmm.
Well, during the winter. But you saw this thing during the summer, and it still had long hair. Wow, I mean, it's like obvious why they have to stay in and around some of these swampy areas where it stays cold during the summer, to deal with it if they've got that long hair like that.
Yeah. And I mean,
Here's something to look for that most people don't think of there. When you've got that mat of moss like that and you get some parasitized trees growing on it, the roots can't go straight down because there is no straight down. That's a lake. So the roots will tend to go out through the moss. And occasionally you see one that a big storm has blown over.
Yep.
You take a look at them sometimes and you go, well, wait a minute. This tree is the same size as these ones all the way around it. How come this one fell over and they didn't? And there's this huge semicircle or better of roots with moss and gook in it that just came up from the swamp that are still attached to the tree. Take a look at it and see which direction the prevailing wind comes from. Because if it happens to be impeding the flow of the prevailing wind, that might be a little bit suspicious. And the second thing about it is when they tip over or something like that falls over, it exposes all of this rotting vegetation that was underneath it. And all that rotting vegetation underneath it is still rotting, which means it's releasing heat. So if it happens to be 25, 30 below, and you have this nice bed of rotting vegetation to lay on, and you got that big shield that protects you from the prevailing wind, well, who needs a cave?
Yeah.
And I found several of those that looked really suspicious. So for you guys that are up there in the northern swamps, keep an eye out for that sort of thing. You there?
Yeah. I thought I lost you for a second. Yeah, we do.
Where are we at here?
But as far as that's really the only thing I've ever saw up there, other than noises. You go out to take a leak in the middle of the night because we don't have a bathroom.
Oh, that must be creepy.
It is extremely creepy. It's the creepiest thing. I don't know. And I have a couple cabins, and this one I won't go out there. I don't know. It's creepy. You go to the bathroom and you can just hear things closing in on you. They're walking in your direction. It's not a good feeling.
No.
But that's another thing. When I'm out there, I get that. I don't know. You just get a bad vibe being out there, as opposed to other places. Where I'm out in the woods and I don't even think twice about it. But
right. That's it's kind of interesting when something like that happens, and I've experienced it too. And folks, when something like that happens, go with your gut. If you're getting that feeling that there's something wrong or you're being observed or something like that, don't blow it off. There's a reason you're getting that feeling. Go with it. Vacate the area. Be safe. Better safe than to disappear and end up in a Dave Pilates book. You don't want to be another chapter in a Dave Pilates book. You get that feeling. There's a reason that you're getting it. And I'm not saying that it's a psychic thing or something. It's probably on a subconscious level. Maybe you picked up enough of a scent that you don't even consciously recognize that you smelled it, but your subconscious mind knows what it is because of the centuries we've had of dealing with animals and whatnot, and recognize it as danger. Maybe you're hearing something that's in the subsonic or ultrasonic range. They supposedly can generate sounds in those ranges, and if that's possible, you would react to it. A lot of times when a Bigfoot shows up in an area, people will say, well, there's all these crickets chirping and the usual sounds of night critters, and all of a sudden they got deathly silent. Well, the bugs don't just shut up for no reason. And they don't shut up because an animal walks near them most of the time. They got to be hearing something that we're not hearing. Just like a dog can hear a dog whistle and we can't hear it. They're hearing something we can't hear, and it's making them shut up. So it seems to me there's a correlation between these creatures being around and some sort of audio frequencies they can generate that are outside of the range of human hearing. And it's possible when we get freaked out and think there's something like that around, what we're doing actually is our body is picking it up more than our actual hearing our brain is registering it and just letting us know that, hey, this is wrong. I'm getting this weird, creepy vibe. Maybe it's a weird, creepy subsonic vibe. We don't know for sure. But all we do know for sure is that those that play and run away live to play another day. So if you get that feeling, go with it, folks. Vacate the area. Don't be a He-Man and go, there's nothing to be afraid of. If you're getting that feeling really strong, there's a reason for it. That's not normal. And if you're in an area where it happens repeatedly, you can start, really thinking there might be something in that area that's causing that sort of reaction. And, it sounds like Grant's got one of those areas here where there's, probably some Squatch living around there pretty regularly. And they put up a little marker to warn the other ones in the area, don't go over by that cabin. We hear boom booms over there. They got thunder sticks or, whatever. But getting back to the number 3 thing, again, like I said, 3 rocks, 3 sticks, that's always a sign of something bad. The only time it's a sign of something good is if you have 3 smoke signals, which means big party over here, woo-woo, come on over. Okay? So with that, I don't have anything else to add. Really glad to be able to finally get a show together for you guys. Looking forward to doing future shows. On the next program, I'm hoping to have Darlene, the guest that was just on Bigfoot Outlaw Radio, who's been having problems with a skunk ape at her ranch down in Florida. And I got some other really great guests lined up for the future. Every episode, we're going to have the awesome and very mad scientist-y guest host of the show here, our buddy, my co-host, Grant Brunetta, and I, the Duke, shall return as well. Anything else you want to say, Grant?
Well, no. The biggest thing, I just wanted to let people know about our email. So if they have any questions or maybe want to tell us what they've seen or whatever, it's worldbigfootradio@gmail.com. So that's the best way to get a hold of me or Duke.
Absolutely, and we're more than happy to listen to your comments, field your questions. If you've had an encounter, you'd like to be a guest on here, even if it's a little short one, you just saw one run across the road, that's an encounter. It doesn't have to be anything big and epic, although we're not saying don't bring big and epic stories here. We'll take those too. But we're just interested in real encounters with Bigfoot. I've seen in real life, flesh and blood, and 2 of them during the day, Bigfoot at close range myself 3 times now. So I know they're real. Grant knows they're real. And that's just the way the show is going to approach it. We're not going to be having debates about whether Bigfoot is real or not. We know it's real. We're going to be talking about things that we've been able to find out about them, people that study them, people that have encounters with them. This is the sort of stuff that we're going to bring you on the show. And not just from here in North America. There are mystery hominids all over the world. So we may get guests on from other parts of the world, including like maybe Australia, where they have yowies. That's their version of Bigfoot. It's kind of like an ogre. Ugh. Yeah, apparently not as cute as a North American Bigfoot. So anyway, so that's the gist of it, folks. Really glad you managed to find the show and that you enjoy it, I hope. And if you did, please come back and listen to the next episode. Try and keep it interesting, fresh, and new information every time we do one here. And hope you're all having a really great day, and God bless you. Take care of yourselves. Grant?
That's all I got. You guys have a good night.
Good night, all.
Yeah. Bye.
Night, everybody.